Iron Man. The character made famous by actor Robert Downey Jr. over the last 11 years, who has proven to not only be the godfather, but the very backbone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Most of the major events that have taken place therein are connected to him in some way or another. His character arc, or better put, character journey, has been an undeniably amazing one as he's evolved from a narcissist who thinks he can do it all to a humbled shell of his former self, wrecked with guilt and failure and stripped of all his optimism. There have been several moments where he's been forced to reflect on who he is as a person and how far he's come, and I feel that no moment better captures the complexity of his character than the scene from 2016's Captain America Civil War where he seeks out and recruits a young Peter Parker. The dynamic between both RDJ and series newcomer Tom Holland and their respective characters is established quickly as Tony is somewhat shocked by someone so young who can keep up with his banter. Once Peter has given up on trying to keep his alter ego a secret from him and accepts that he's been found out, Tony is impressed at Peter for not only being a competent hero in his own right, but having the technical knowledge and mechanical wisdom to devise both web fluid and web shooters to use them for. Tony realizes he's dealing with someone smart and decides to dig even deeper and ask why Peter does what he does, to which he replies,
"Because I've been me my whole life, and I've had these powers for 6 months. I read books, I build computers. And yeah, I would love to play football, but I couldn't then, so I shouldn't now."
Sure, because you're different.
Exactly. But I can't tell anybody that, so I'm not. Look, when you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you.
It becomes obvious to Tony in that very moment what kind of person Peter is. He sees a perfect blend of himself and his idealistic rival in this film, Steve Rogers, embodied in one person. Tony and Peter are both clearly shackled by guilt and regret over the mistakes that they made, which inform their current decisions. Only for Peter, it doesn't make him want to shy away from responsibility, it makes him willing to take it on. Peter has learned, much like Steve, that the decisions any one person makes carry their own set of rewards and consequences, something that the person in question is going to have to carry with them for life. But it's better to own those mistakes than to force blame onto someone else. It's the freedom to make that choice and accept that responsibility that Steve is defending and Tony is opposing. He realizes in this moment that he made the wrong decision. This scene also demonstrates an understanding of who Peter Parker is as a character in a way that no previous on-screen adaptation has ever done. He's a troubled soul who feels the weight of one bad decision he made as it follows him for the rest of his life. Something that leaves him feeling alienated, isolated, and lonely. Feelings that he only loses when he puts on the Spider-Man costume, assuming a role that allows him to have purpose and find confidence in himself. It's just a shame that everything following the character's journey after this moment loses that nuanced understanding that I just praised it for. Regardless, Tony is forced to ignore the glaring reminder in his face telling him that he's making a mistake and still, recklessly, drags a child to Germany and pits him against Captain America, hoping that nobody on the opposing team decides to hurt him. However, if he'd been wrong, he very well could have ended up with a similar situation as to what began the arc Tony is on in this film, being the death of a young innocent. Seems like an inconsistency in the character, but I don't know that I agree. I think it's simply a reflection of his haste to make ill-advised decisions when he thinks he knows what's best. Pursuing Thor for Loki in the first Avengers film, creating Ultron in the second, and now enlisting the help of a child. He's also prone to poor judgment in times of desperation, firing up the massive arc reactor to defeat Stain, creating vision and hopes of defeating Ultron, and in this movie, nothing sums up his plight more than desperation. He's desperate to keep the Avengers together, desperate to do the right thing, however that must be done, and desperate to find closure, and now, here, desperate to resolve the problem at hand with the least fallout. I think this scene carries with it a lot of nuance that seems to go unnoticed, and I think that's what as to what began the arc Tony is on in this film, being the death of a young innocent. Seems like an inconsistency in the character, but I don't know that I agree. I think it's simply a reflection of his haste to make ill-advised decisions when he thinks he knows what's best. Pursuing Thor for Loki in the first Avengers film, creating Ultron in the second, and now enlisting the help of a child. He's also prone to poor judgment in times of desperation, firing up the massive arc reactor to defeat Stain, creating vision and hopes of defeating Ultron, and in this movie, nothing sums up his plight more than desperation. He's desperate to keep the Avengers together, desperate to do the right thing, however that must be done, and desperate to find closure, and now, here, desperate to resolve the problem at hand with the least fallout. I think this scene carries with it a lot of nuance that seems to go unnoticed, and I think that's what makes it a marvelous scene. Alright, so that was my second attempt at making this video. I screwed up and I lost all the, everything the first time around. So I had to go and redo everything. But, I want to shout out Nando v Movies for creating this thing, the whole One Marvelous Scene thing, this project that involves High Top Films and Mr. Sunday Movie.